It was 91 degrees the day I stood in that little building, hot enough that the walk-over had my shirt stuck to my back, and I stepped inside and I could see my breath, my own breath, in a cloud in front of my face in the dead middle of August. No ice in there, no machine, no wire running to it, no fan, no nothing. Just a little stone building set over a spring, and the water coming up cool out of the ground, and that cool held the whole place cold enough to fog my breath, while the world outside was fit to wilt the corn. I want to tell you how that's possible, because once you understand the how of it, you'll understand something that's sitting right under your own house this very minute, doing nothing, that could keep you cool all summer for next to no money. Folks have known it for thousands of years. My people have used it for 200, and most everyone living in a modern house has clean forgot it's down there. My name is Caleb Yoder. I farm, and that little building I stood in is what we call a spring house, and to understand it, you've got to understand the thing underneath all of this, which is the plainest, strangest fact about the ground you walk on. So let me start where I started, as a boy, before I could have told you the why of any of it. We had a root cellar. Every farm did, still does. A room dug down into the earth, 10 feet down, walls of stone and packed dirt. And here's the thing about that room that took me half my life to truly wonder at. In the deep of winter, when it's bitter above and the water in the troughs froze solid, that cellar down there stays above freezing, and the potatoes and apples and carrots keep sound and sweet all winter. And then in the roast of August, when the air upstairs is thick enough to spoon, you climb down into that very same cellar and it's cool as an April morning. Same room, same hole in the ground, warm when the world is frozen, cool when the world is baking, and in all my 65 years it has never once changed. Now as a boy I never questioned it. That was just how a cellar was. It wasn't till I was a grown man that I stopped and truly asked myself why, and when the answer came to me, it struck me as one of the quiet marvels of this world. Here it is. The ground has a memory, and it is a slow, slow memory. Go down just a few feet, 6 feet or so, and the dirt down there does not know what season it is up top. It isn't hot in summer. It isn't cold in winter. It sits at one steady, middling coolness all the year round, and it hardly moves off it. And why would that be? Because dirt is heavy, heavier than a man reckons, and it takes a tremendous amount of heat to warm a heavy thing, even a little. So when the summer sun beats down day after day trying to drive its heat down into the earth, that heat sinks so slow, creeping down through the soil an inch at a time, that by the time it's finally struggled down those 6 feet, the summer's long over, and the cool of autumn has come along above and undone the whole effort. The heat never catches up to itself. The deep ground never gets word that it was ever summer at all. It just sits there, cool and patient, like one enormous, slow cellar running under the whole of the world. That's not a trick, and it's not a secret anybody's keeping. It's just a plain, quiet fact about dirt that most folks have never had cause to notice. And once you've noticed it, you can't stop seeing what it's good for. That spring house I told you about, the one that fogged my breath, that's the ground doing its work made plain. A spring is water that comes up out of the deep, cool earth, and it comes up carrying that steady cool with it. Build a little house over it, let that cool water run under the floor, and the whole building takes on the temperature of the deep ground. Cool enough on a 90-degree day to keep the milk and the butter and the cream fresh with no ice and no icebox, and cool enough to chill a grown man through his shirt. My people used those for generations to keep food before ever there was such a thing as a refrigerator. And they work as well today as they ever did. And some of the real old farmhouses went a step further, and this is the part that reaches right into your own house. The old builders ran clay pipes down under the floor so that the outside air would come in, travel a long way through the cool earth beneath the house, and rise up cool through the floorboards into the rooms. They cooled the house itself with nothing but the ground it stood on. That was written up more than 100 years back, and there's old places still running that very way to this day. So now you understand the marvel, and here's the part you've been waiting for, which is how a body in a plain modern house can reach down and use that same cool ground. Because you can. And here I have to slow down and be careful and truthful with you, more careful than the title I gave you was, and I'll own that. The way it's done nowadays, you run a pipe. You dig a trench down about 6 feet, down where the ground holds its steady cool, and you lay a long run of good smooth pipe in it, 100 feet, maybe 200, and bury it back over. One end opens to the outside air, the other end runs into your house, and a small fan, one that draws no more power than a light bulb, pulls the outside air down through that long buried pipe. The air travels the whole way through the cool earth, and the earth quietly pulls the heat out of it, and what arrives in your house is cool air. On a day that's 95 in the shade, the air coming out the end of that pipe might be 65 or 70. No compressor, no chemical, no roaring machine. Just hot air sent for a long walk through cool ground. Now here's where I'll set the title straight, gently, because you'd catch me otherwise. That's cool air. It is not 55-degree air, and it will not hold your whole house at 55 in a hard summer, whatever the words up top promised. What it will do is take the cruel edge off the heat and do it for pennies. And it isn't rightly a $300 job either, once you've counted the trenching and the fan and the rest. Nor is it against any law, that's just words to pull you in. But strip the tall promises off it, and what's left is still a genuine thing and a good one. Cooler air, drier air, for a fraction of what a machine costs to run. And I owe you the trouble with it too, plain, for there is one. In a dry climate, the middle of the country, the plains, the drier states, this works beautifully and simply, and I'd recommend it to near anyone. But in a wet, muggy country, the deep south, the coast, where the air hangs heavy with water, that cool pipe underground sweats, the same as a cold glass sweats on a summer table. And a long, dark pipe full of damp is just the place mold likes to grow, and you do not want to be drawing the air your family breathes through a moldy pipe. So in the muggy country, the plain air pipe is a poor bargain unless you're minded to tend it close. But there's a smarter way that gets clean around that, and I'll hand it to you because it fixes the very fault. Instead of running your house's air through the buried pipe, you run water through it. A closed loop of water, sealed up tight, with a little of the same antifreeze that's in a car's radiator so it can't freeze on you. That water circles down through the buried pipe, takes on the cool of the earth, and comes back up into the house, where it cools your air through a small exchanger, and the ground air never once touches what you breathe. No damp pipe full of house air, no mold to fret over. And being just a sealed water loop, near enough to ordinary plumbing, it slips past a good deal of the fuss about permits that the air kind runs into. That's the version I'd steer most folks toward, and it's the sounder one by a good way. I heard of a man down in Tennessee who did just that, and I'll tell it because it's the honest picture of the thing without any of the bragging. Plain house, built back in the 70s, nothing special about it. He dug his own trench over a couple of weekends, buried his sealed loop, ran the water lines into a little unit in a closet, and now the cool of the earth does the most of his cooling in the summer and lends him a hand with the heat come winter. But here's the part I admired, and the part that made it wise instead of foolish. He never tore out his old furnace and his old air conditioner. He left them sitting right where they were, still hooked up, ready. He just found he didn't need to run them anymore. And if his earth loop ever fails him, he flips back to the old way inside of 5 minutes, no harm done. That's not a gamble, you see. That's a man who added a cheap helper without betting everything he had on it. And that is exactly how I'd have you think of the whole business. Don't rip out what already works and leap into the dark. Add the cool of the ground alongside what you've got and lean on it more and more as it earns your trust. Now, before you run off for a shovel, hear my cautions, for I'd not send a man off to hurt himself for want of a word. A trench 6 feet down is a serious dig and a dangerous one. The walls of a deep trench can cave in on a man, and a cave-in has killed more than one, so that is no job to do alone or in a hurry or without knowing your business. And there's the matter of what comes up out of the ground in some places. A gas out of the deep earth that you can't smell and don't want gathering in your house. So drawing air up from underground is a thing to look into careful for your own patch of ground before ever you do it. And whatever that title said about no permits, don't take my word nor that Tennessee man's for what's allowed where you live. Every place has its own rules and mostly its own good reasons for them, and the fellow who builds without asking is the fellow who builds it twice. Ask first. It'll cost you nothing but a little pride, and pride's cheap to spend. So here's the whole of it laid out true. The ground beneath you is cool and steady, and it costs nothing. And that alone is a genuine wonder that's been true since before there were men to notice it. You can reach down and borrow that cool to help cool your house, honest and real, for far less than any machine, and it does best in the dry country and wants more minding in the wet. It won't hold your house at 55, and it isn't quite free once the digging's counted, but it's real, it's old, it's sound, and it's the biggest, coolest thing you own, sitting there under your floor doing nothing at all. Nobody made this against the law, and no industry buried it. The truth is duller than that and stranger. It just quietly slipped most folks' minds when the machines came along and turned being cool into something you buy instead of something you build. But the ground never forgot. It's down there right now, cool as my grandfather's cellar, same as it was in his day and his grandfathers before him, waiting on somebody to remember it. My father, when a man went and paid dear for a thing he already had for nothing, used to say, "Don't buy water when you're standing in the creek. You've got a cool creek running under your house all summer long. It'd be worth knowing it's there before you pay another soul to make you cold." That's what I've got. There's a fence line out there that won't mend itself. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.